Good evening. It's about 5:30 Boca Raton Eastern Standard Time. Let me hit my lightning. There, remove this. There we go. Hi. I just keep wanting to thank everybody for watching. This is probably the most relaxing time of this day right now that I've had because it's been extremely, when you think you're in control of everything and then you realize you're not, and everything comes in at once, and it's like this socket in the wall. You plug too many appliances in, and the thing just shorted out. I want to thank Haiti and the Dominican Republic and all the states, New Jersey, Missouri, California, a lot in San Diego, and then Atlanta. Oh my goodness. I love it. And then it's not that I'm that busy that I can't go to your profiles and see what you do. I mean, you're in all walks of life, and you're all colors, all shapes and sizes and statuses and religious preferences or non or political agenda. It's been so good. It's been great for me because, as I said, to talk to myself in a phone is really therapeutic. Tells you where my world's coming from. Oh, in the Dominican Republic, thank you. So, one other thing is, when I go on, and I would go to my story, it shows up on the top, well, I'd click on it, and I didn't realize there's this little bar that goes along the top. So you have about a 10-second window, and it flips like a page to something else. Well, I didn't understand any of that, and I keep flipping back to mine. And it would go back again. And I realized after 11 readings that, of course, if someone's watching or I want to check someone out who has watched a viewer or a viewess, and I can click on it, it'll freeze that reading. Or I looked up in the left-hand corner and it said, watch video. So I clicked on that left-hand box where it said, watch video, and lo and behold, the Red Sea parted. I was able to watch my video. So I learned, again, oh God, if I can help anybody by doing this. But that's what the point is that I'm wondering why this thing's flipping. And yet sometimes I'd hit somebody's name and it stops and I can read it. And the next thing I know, watch video in the left corner. Of course, they will always be there on my Facebook page. It's just the way it is. And I don't know it's on for 24 hours on my story. Always go to my Facebook page and you can see everything, all of them. So that I wanted to get out of the way. Oh, and another really interesting person was someone who works in a Shalom hospice. I mentioned that I wrote a book about hospice. It's called And I Held Their Hands with a Hospice Heart. And I got somebody watched, and they work at a Shalom hospice. I thought, isn't that wonderful? Because, that's what I say at the end. Oh, and then and the other thing is, again, before I forget, SusanMintz.com. You can read the stories. You can read the media. You can read everything you need to know. So if you don't want to go back, at least you'll have, my website has everything you need on it. As I said, these readings are episodes that'll be happening in a series one day, the good Lord willing. But you can go on my website and check out media, check out books. You'll see my hospice book. They are on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I think my book is an ebook. I don't know, from ebooks. I'm lucky I even know how to write anymore. I just love to write. I have nothing in me to write about. And then, there was a wonderful comment. Is somebody who's been very good about watching. They said to me that yesterday's reading made her angry and that I must be very forgiving. Then I thought to myself, I think that's what I want. I want you to feel. I want you to feel everything that I've felt. Because you may feel anger and rage about something and fear. You may be frustrated. You may know never-ending love. You may know every emotion and feeling that God gave you. I want you to feel from my heart, from my writings in my book. So I thanked her and I said, yes, I was angry, but I know a part of me is forgiving. And that's the part of me that God has worked on so much, is forgiveness. And again, love. When you love, you forgive. How many of these horrible things on TV where there's shootings and you'll see someone get up, the mother or the father or a relative get up and say, I forgive the shooter. I forgive that person who killed that person, my son. And you wonder, how could they forgive someone so cruel? It's an amazing thing what you can forgive and who you can forgive if it's done because God has given you that ability and you know that it's what you're supposed to do. You don't have to forget, but you can forgive. So again, I want you to feel everything that there is to feel. If you didn't have these emotions and feelings, so what? Why would you go through life in a coma, just surviving? Even if it's bad, try to find something that you can use to help you go forward. And then, I don't know, some couldn't read it, some with, I don't know what I even wrote. So we will forget that. So we're going to start, and I'm going to read a little bit where I left off, but again, thank you. People go on tomorrow, they go on the next day. I'm just so amazed that people go on. But that frustrates me. Just give me a moment here. Some couldn't read it. Some, with the book. People who have bought my book have literally said some put it down after 3 chapters. They couldn't do it. They had to wait. One said they pulled off to the side of the road when they read the short story version. They started crying so hysterically they had to pull off. Somebody else read the book in 1 day. So, this book is a book. It's 24 chapters. You may be able to read it fully. You may not. But you do know the author. You do know the person. And you know that I'm right here with you. I love emails. I love questions. I love comments. And on my website is my phone number. So if anybody has any issue they want to discuss, I'm here because that's all we're ever here for, is to help each other. So we're going to start. And I'll be going into chapter 4, which is that dreaded diagnosis. And that's what I meant when I said these chapters are, who hasn't with COVID had a dreaded diagnosis? You have COVID, you're COVID positive, you're testing positive. I mean, my goodness, I was dealing with HIV then and AIDS in the 80s and early 90s to this day. You still don't want to hear it. Or breast cancer or Alzheimer's, or think of all the conditions. A dreaded diagnosis. I know, though, with COVID, to be so afraid that you didn't even want to come out of your house. And if you tested again and you were still there, it was frightening. So, I'm going to just back up so you'll know a little bit about where we left off. In the early 80s, with the AIDS epidemic increasingly, so is the number of innocent lives lost to this deadly disease. I just see COVID right now in your heads and in your heart, because many of you will never ever know anybody who's HIV positive. You're too young. You've never experienced it. When you told me you'd met someone significant, I knew I had to make a life-altering decision. I couldn't allow myself to be put at risk any longer because I'd had so many STDs. I couldn't change you, and I wouldn't leave you. Choosing celibacy was the only thing I could do to protect myself. I remember every detail when I told you my decision. We'd agreed that Tuesday and Thursday evenings would be your 2 nights out. But late one Friday evening, you called stating you wanted to see a drag show at a local gay bar. You said you wouldn't be home late, but it was 4 a.m. when you finally came home. I was furious. How dare you use me and take advantage of our private time? I cherished our times together. When we got in bed, I turned on the light. You were surprised because you thought I was sleeping. I said in quotes, "Jeff, I'm only going to say this once. You are who you are, and I'll try my best to accept that. I'll love you, live with you, and care for you, but I won't die for you. I know you won't get an HIV test." He could never have dealt with that. He didn't want to know. "Therefore, I won't have sexual intercourse with you any longer. Every time you have sex with a man, you're putting my life on the line also. I have to take matters into my own hands. I've made this decision for my own protection." End quote. You were calm and understanding. And you said, quote, "I respect your decision, and if that's your choice, I'll accept it." End quote. That was the end of our conversation. It was ultimately the decision that saved my life. That's where I ended yesterday. The decision that saved my life. I knew my commitment to love. This is new now, starting today. They're on, Wednesday? Not sure of the date, but we're okay. I knew my commitment to love and stay with you was the right one. Remember, you're getting the author, unscripted and unedited, reading from her book. I knew my commitment to love and stay with you was the right one. It was my choice, and I've never regretted that decision. Looking back, why do you think I put myself through such mental and emotional abuse? I've asked myself that question 1,000 times. The answer was always the same. I loved you, Jeff. I loved you because you were worth loving. Let me see that again. I loved you because you were worth loving. There were times I didn't like you, and sometimes I hated you, but I never stopped loving you. I believed in us, and I couldn't give up on you. You once told me, quotes, "Susan, you're the most stubborn, persistent, never give up, focused person I know. You're a true Taurus the bull," end quote. And I am. That was one of the greatest compliments you ever gave me. Do you remember your reward? I made you the best eggplant parmesan you'd ever eaten. You may have wanted other men in bed, but I was the only one who could satisfy you in the kitchen. I mean, that was a part of it. There's going to be times in this book where there's great laughter. There's great fun. There's great everything. Some of it's going to be deep. My life was. But think about what he said to me when I said, I never stopped loving you. I believe in us, and I couldn't give up on you. You were worth loving. Who in your life do you want to give up on? But they're worth loving. Are not all of us worthy of love? Even the worst of us at times. I think we are. I think there is something to be salvaged in most people if you give them the chance. But he was worth loving. I just happen to be the one who could do it. You're a true Taurus. He said, Susan, you're the most stubborn, persistent, never give up, focused person I know. You're a true Taurus the bull. That was one of the greatest compliments you ever gave me. Do you remember your reward? I made you the best eggplant parmesan you'd ever eaten. You may have wanted other men in your bed, but I was the only one who could satisfy you in the kitchen. And that is the truth. I'm still stubborn, focused, disciplined, never give up. I don't care if nobody watches. Nobody watches this. I am. But I know you are, and I know you will. And you're going to keep telling your friends, and you're going to keep sharing and talk about this lady in Boca who just, again, talks into her phone. And there will be some repetition. All right, chapter 4. The dreaded diagnosis. June 9th. Remember, this book was written a long time ago, but it was never published. It was written as the journals through 1992 and 94. And then it sat on a shelf till I got the copyright in 2008. Think about it, all those years it sat. When I got the copyright, it just started sending stuff out from scratch. And it wasn't until 2016 that I published. So this has been a really long journey. The dreaded diagnosis, and some of you are going to really go on this one. June 19th, 1992. Dear Jeff, we were having dinner one evening and I said, Jeff, quote, you've never forgotten my birthday, our anniversary, or any other special occasion that gave us a reason to celebrate, end quote. You said, quote, Susan, certain dates become etched in your mind and you can't forget them no matter how hard you try, end quote. Hear me, you said, Susan, there are certain dates that become etched in your mind and you can't forget them no matter how hard you try. My date was June 19th, 1992. Over the years, we were fortunate to have celebrated so many wonderful occasions with our family and friends. But we knew a few tragic dates, didn't we? Dates that brought us great pain and sorrow. Yes, Jeff, there was one date I wish I could erase from my mind. It was a date so horrible, there go the chills again, and terrifying, and it changed our life forever. Remember, he would not get tested. Jeffrey couldn't have lived knowing he was positive. That's it. And he had one life insurance test in 86, and he was okay. By 89, they had perfected the HIV tests much more, and he would have come back positive. I know that. I wish I could erase from my mind. It was a date so horrible and terrifying, but it changed our life forever. On that date, I said goodbye to my life as I watched you fight desperately for yours. We were thrown upside down, and everything we had ever become or ever wanted was going to be over. We were living inside someone else's nightmare as we entered our own private hell. This frightening new life was ours. It was Friday, June 19th, 1992. I can still hear our doctor telling us, you had pneumocystic carinary pneumonia and AIDS. And now, my darling, 5 years after your death, I must tell you honestly how that terrible date in June changed the rest of my life. Your diagnosis opened the door to my future, and in it, I would eventually find peace and happiness I'd been searching for. Now, I don't know if that's really true. There's times that I've been happy and there's times I haven't. But if I reflect back, I was doing 5 years after his death, his diagnosis opened a door to my future. I mean, think about his passing in 94 and my future now, all these years later. I would eventually find the peace and happiness I've been searching for. I don't know if I could say that today, but the date is the date. My poor Jeff, you hadn't been feeling well for so long. I was afraid because I knew what was happening. By now, it was the early 90s, and the AIDS epidemic was 10 years old, how many men had we known whose symptoms of HIV were similar to yours? Do you think I wanted to face the truth? Of course I didn't. And I didn't have the courage to confront you about it. I wanted desperately to believe that my love for you was powerful enough to save you from this horrible fate. Now remember again, we're not talking about today, with incredible medications that have come along, long-term survivor groups, people living 20, 30. I mean, they're living amazingly, living wonderfully healthy, great lives. I just wish Jeff could have. Do you think I wanted to face the truth? Of course I didn't. And I didn't have the courage to confront you about it. I wanted desperately to believe that my love for you was powerful enough to save you from this horrible fate. I tried to rationalize your symptoms, but every night for 12 months, I went to bed knowing that you were infected with this deadly virus. You denied their insidious and subtle warning signs, but that was your nature. You never wanted to face yourself. Nope. You denied your homosexuality for years. You wouldn't go for an HIV test, and you couldn't tell your parents, who loved you so much, that you weren't the perfect son you wanted to be. You spent much of your life running from the truth about yourself. Now there was no place to run and nowhere to hide. Your past had finally caught up with you. See, that's what I've been saying all along, is that you can move, get new husbands, get new cars, get new cities, but eventually, you can deny things as much as you want. Eventually, your past will probably catch up with you, and it's never too late, or is it? Now, there was no place to run, and remember, these are journals. This is all 15 journals that were handwritten during his illness, and I had to transpose those journals to condense it into a book. This was a process for me, but reading it to people around the world, oh, what a blessing to know that there is a woman here who can do this, and if I can do it, you can do it. Now there was no place to run and nowhere to hide. Your past had finally caught up with you. For 12 months, I watched your healthy, magnificent body deteriorate. This might bring up some memories for some of you. It started with your skin. Every aspect of it changed. You always had a dark, glowing complexion that radiated vitality and good health. Your skin was dry and dull. In many lights, it looked yellow. For the first time in your life, you had dandruff. It was in your hair, around your eyebrows, the bridge of your nose, and around your mustache. You broke out with little pimples on your legs that itched constantly. You scratched them so intensely that they bled. You tried every lotion and ointment, but nothing seemed to work. The next significant change came with your weight. I'd seen many people waste away from this disease, but now I saw it happening to you. And that was the syndrome, they called it, wasting away, and many of our friends did. But now I saw it happening to you. From the beginning of our marriage, you weighed between 165 and 170 pounds. Oh, how I envied your ability to eat anything you wanted and never gain a pound. Oh, and I did, because food was so important and he could eat. Now it continued to drop, and your appetite diminished. You were chewing your food more slowly and taking deep breaths in order to finish a meal. However, my worst fears came at night. I couldn't sleep with you any longer. You were snoring. Your breathing was labored, and you were restless. You struggled for air, making sounds that frightened me. You weren't the man I'd known for 23 years. Everything about you was changing. If these changes were outwardly visible, what was happening inside your body? I'm going to read just a little bit more. I'm going to keep you with a cliffhanger. I love these cliffhangers because in a series, that's what brings you back. The cliffhanger. Hello, Edmund. Josette. Hi. And anyone else who's watching that I don't know. Hello, I know you now. In the beginning of June, and remember, all these posts are on Facebook. All these readings are on my Facebook page. They're also in a book that you can get. Here we go. Let's do this. Everything about you is changing. If these changes were outwardly visible, what was happening inside your body? In the beginning of June 1992, your fever spiked to 103 to 104 degrees for several days. I had to change the sheets in the middle of the night because your night sweats drenched the bed. The chills accompanying the fevers were violent. You were having convulsions. Fearful that you would hurt yourself, I'd throw myself and lie on top of you, holding you down. I'd lie on top of him, holding him down, with blankets on all of us, wrapped around us. You couldn't catch your breath. And walking to the bathroom tired you out. Don't be sad for me, people. Don't be sad for me. This marriage was my life, and reading it is still, and all the things in between. Don't feel like the song says, don't, pray, don't, cry for me, Argentina. You want to cry, cry, but don't cry for me. Or if you want to cry for me, cry for me. Do whatever makes you okay. The chills accompanying the fevers were violent. You were having convulsions. Fearful that you would hurt yourself, I'd lie on top of you, holding you down. You couldn't catch your breath, and even walking to the bathroom tired you out. And then there was that horrible cough. You suffered for weeks, but blamed it on a sinus condition. Finally, we called our doctor. He said to come in immediately for a chest x-ray and blood work. When he saw you, he knew it was serious. The x-ray revealed pneumonia. He said that could be causing your symptoms because you could have had it for a while. He gave you an antibiotic and said he'd call us tomorrow with the lab reports. We were almost happy to hear it was pneumonia. Can you imagine? We were almost happy to hear that it was only pneumonia. We waited anxiously for the results. You'd gotten worse overnight and couldn't breathe. At 5 o'clock p.m. on June 19th, 1992, the phone rang. Our doctor was downstairs. We lived in a high-rise, and we had to let him in. The look on his face said it all. I held your hands as he gave us the devastating news. Your AIDS test came back positive. He thought you had PCP pneumonia and full-blown AIDS. You'd be admitted into the hospital in the morning. And that would have been on June 20th, 1992. I will start that tomorrow. So, where are we? The dreaded diagnosis. I chose celibacy, and that saved my life. I couldn't change him. You don't really change people. They have to find rock bottom on their own if they have an issue, or they have to want to change. Jeff wouldn't have, so it was my choice. It saved my life, but also it was a mandate from God to stay with him and love him. Because had I given up on him years ago, he wouldn't have known his best friend. He would never have known his best friend who would have been with him to the end. And that's what's so important about love. You may want to get out. And you may get out. But when you know you're doing what's right and that everything about you is rough and uncomfortable and it's, you feel like everything's wrong. Maybe that's why maybe everything's going to be all right. Because when everything is wrong, ultimately, it might end up being all right. Though he died in 1994, and we'll get to every bit of it, every chapter, 24 chapters of which we're heading into 4. You're going to know the good times, the laughter, the closeness. We were just really best friends. Don't give up on your friends. Don't give up on your family. Call someone. Tell someone you love them. As I laughed last night, I said, even tell people you don't like about me. See, when I do finally listen to what I've said, I make me laugh. I find my gestures, what I say, because it's so real. That's why even the interviews, when the reporters would interview me, they'd always want me to, they'd want more, and they'd get edited, they'd get cut, but they loved it because I was so real. Real people. You'll never be hurt if you're yourself. Ultimately, those who will love you will love you. Those who won't, won't. You can't change them. Don't try. Don't be anybody but who you are supposed to be and who you know you can be the best that you can be. Can we all make sacrifices in life? Absolutely. It is a lot of sacrifice, but I've lived almost 76 years. This hair didn't happen overnight. This book didn't happen overnight. Your lives haven't happened overnight. Don't give up. You know what I'm going to say now, don't you? Can't believe there was a Shalom hospice. I'd never heard of that. And if you want to get angry, get angry. If you want to not get angry, you want to cry, cry. But know that this woman is doing right now exactly what she's supposed to be doing. I love you. God bless you. And shalom, hello. Shalom, goodbye. And shalom, peace. I also realized that I shouldn't be fidgeting with my pen. And I'm not moving around today because the physical therapy didn't hurt. And I took 2 Tylenol before I went on. Too much information? I don't think so. So go to my website, check everything out, and you can read about Committed to Love. You can read interviews. You can listen to 700 Club did a marvelous interview. They came to Boca, in fact, and did a wonderful interview many years ago. I'd forgotten about it. But everything's on there. So again, shalom. Have a blessed night. It's about 6 o'clock. And I thank you so much for watching, those who did. I'm going to hit finish. And then I'm going to post it, never delete. And it'll be on my it'll be on my Facebook page. And it'll be on my story. But remember, when you go to my story, if you're not familiar with things, with the Facebook, it'll flip to another page. And you'll wonder, well, she only gave me about 10 seconds of it. No. Up in your left-hand corner, it'll say, watch video. So one way or another, you can get to me. God bless you and shalom. Thank you, Edmund. Thank you, Josette, Josie.